Also, for a few negatives, I need to be more knowledgeable about the slide content, or at least have the slide in my hand, so that my head is never turned away from the class or from the students. Also, if I was doing the talking heads activity again, I'd produce more information for the students so that they can be more creative with it. I do not wish to limit their interaction in the debate due to the lack of information at hand. There were many problems. So around 1787, early Americans realized that Articles of Confederation weren't working, and they all gathered to fix them. And Alexander Hamilton threw together the Annapolis Convention, which came together just to talk about the problems. They decided that a solution had to be made. There was no legitimate money, and the U.S. quickly slipped into debt. They weren't able to fund anything that they needed to do. As for the information provided, I support the fact that it did meet NCSS standards for governance, power, and authority, and the Virginia SOL standard for Virginia U.S. history, number 5. Our lecture covered the creation of the Articles of Confederation, the influence they had on the system of government, the creation of the Constitution, and the people motivated to reform or remake the American government in the 1780s. I believe the Talking Heads activity gave the students plenty of interaction with the content and had them construct their knowledge in a less than conventional way. The idea was to have them active in forming their opinions to certain topics pertaining to the issues of the era. With the dialogue of the debate, they provided similar thought patterns to those of their counterparts. To gauge the previous understanding of each student, we gave them a question to answer at the beginning of class on entry cards. To see their thoughts on a topic they would be learning on during the lesson. We then decided to read out a few random answers to show the class the general understanding as a whole. Upon the class exit, we had every student write down something they had learned during the class period. These exit cards give us the opportunity to observe how each student has constructed pieces of knowledge and ask them if they had any questions pertaining to the lesson. This feedback gives us the ability to reflect and reform the lesson, to scaffold the problem areas, and to uphold the strengths of the lesson. Alright. Some of the things that y'all said about the Articles of Confederation included strong states. The federal couldn't do very much, they couldn't tax. It was used from the 1770s until 1789 when the Constitution was ratified. Somebody knows their stuff. Let's see. It was a weak league of friendship. That's a very good way to put it. Very good way to put it. And extremely weak is a good word there. Pre-Constitution. It's gone now. And focused on the states. So y'all got the gist. Y'all got the gist. Y'all got the idea. It was mainly state-oriented. It was oriented for power towards the states and not towards the central government. My initial reaction to first viewing the video would be that I'm very fidgety and need to stop bobbing around and to stop shifting my weight. I need to be able to find a place and stop moving everything beneath my waistline to be able to not provide a distraction for the students. I feel that my enunciation was more precise this time and that I presented the information with diligence. Other than times where I looked at the board to read slides, I felt that I kept my eyes focused on the class and to see the students that were looking engaged. There were a few moments when I would look in a non-engaging manner towards a vacant spot in the room, but for the majority of the time I focused looking into the eyes of the students. I like to use my hands to emphasize things as I'm doing now, to help my speaking along. And I'm hoping that and one of the things I noticed is I don't think it took away from the lecture. I felt that they were not too excessive or distracting. So each state would select a delegate or delegates, and those delegates would vote as one. So they each have one vote, so there'd be 13 equal votes. And all states had to approve a bill before it became law. So it had to be unanimous. There was no such thing as a majority versus minority vote. You had to be completely unanimous, and any state could veto it. As for the negative aspects, I noticed that the debate had moments when unruliness would get nearly out of hand, and at other times when almost no responses would be raised. The debate needed more structure in order to be more beneficial for student learning. When passing out the talking heads description sheets to each student, I had my worries that they did not provide enough information about each founding father to each student. For a class of graduate students, most if not all former history undergrads, this would have been a nice review, but for teaching a high school environment, the lesson might have come across as slightly confusing.